Hello lords and ladies of the internet, I'm the King of Candor, and today we will be discussing the history of Minotaurs in fantasy. Now, Minotaurs have a long history in fantasy and folklore. Minotaurs and their myths probably originate from the ancient veneration of bulls and cows by cultures in the Near East and Greece. A lot of these bull cults focus on the sun, fertility, and a divine link. These early bull cults focus on some sort of link to divinity and fertility. This makes sense if you think about cows producing milk and sustenance. I also notice that there's a lot of bulls that have divinity in their backstories, like Apis from Egyptian mythology. In fact, he started out life as just a bull with a halo between his horns, and slowly he turned into a bull-headed man, and then developed further as he mixed with the Greeks and began to be depicted as a man with bull horns and a head. The best representative of this divine link is the constellation Taurus in the night sky. Even before it was called Taurus, this constellation has been associated with bullheads as far back as 15,000 years ago. It also marks the start of the spring equinox, and that's kind of the start of the farming season in most cultures. In some Christian traditions, when this constellation is in the sky is also when Easter is celebrated. There are two myths around the Taurus constellation I want to share, starting with the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh. In this, Ishtar sends Taurus, the divine bull, down to fight Gilgamesh for not sleeping with her. Gilgamesh and his best friend kill the bull and throw it back into the night sky. The second myth is one involving Zeus. Zeus allegedly turned into a bull to seduce Europa. However, there's another version of this where he turned his lover Io into a bull to hide her from his wife. The important part of both of these myths is Europa and Io are noted as being the ancestors of one King Minos, and it involves a bull. This will all become relevant later. Also, Taurus means bull, and that's where the tar part of Minotaur comes from. So, what exactly is a Minotaur? Minotaurs are a mixture of men and bulls, and are a combination of the traits between them. Most Minotaurs are larger than humans, with enhanced strength, and having a bull head. Me and many other scholars believe that the story of the Greek Minotaur was inspired by the Greeks discovering the ruins of the palaces on Crete, in seeing all the frescoes left behind by their bull cult. There are many murals and pictures of bulls, as well as people either jumping over them or riding them. It's kinda hard to tell in the art. By the time the ancient Greeks got there, the palaces had mostly collapsed. These palatial ruins look like the remnants of an ancient underground labyrinth. In order to explain their creation, the Greeks devised the myth of the Minotaur, which I will now recite. Long ago, King Minos of Crete ascended to the throne after a bloody war. While he was ascending, he was given the gift of a white bull to be sacrificed to Poseidon as thanks for victory. King Minos, though, was greedy and decided to keep the bull that was made for Poseidon. Poseidon decided to punish King Minos by having his wife fall in love with the bull. The inventor Daedalus made a wooden bull for her, and the next day she was with child. The child eventually was born and was half bull, half man. Disgusted by this, King Minos locked his child in the dungeon and had Daedalus construct a great labyrinth to lock him in. Eventually, King Minos had another son, and this son was killed by the Athenians. We don't know why. It could have been a war or jealousy over his victories in the Olympic Games. There are many events and stories about this, but he definitely was killed by the Athenians. In recompense, 7 men and 7 women were sent to be sacrificed to King Minos, and he threw them into the labyrinth with his Minotaur son. The third time this tribute was made, a hero named Theseus stepped up and decided to be the sacrifice. Theseus went on to slay the Minotaur to help King Minos' daughter, who fell in love with him. After freeing the Athenians, Theseus went home and became king. That's the quick version of the myth. And yes, this is the same Theseus who the great ship of Theseus problem is named for. This tale is pretty much the origin of Minotaurs, but I do want to cover a few other interesting bullmen while we're in the past. Eastern Minotaurs / bullmen are an interesting side note and are some of the other bull-headed men that I have found in history. The Assyrians have what's called a lamassu, which has the head of a man, the body of a bull or lion, and the wings of an eagle. Many East Asian nations have ox head and horse face as well. They have different names in Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese, and in all three of these folklores they are guardians of hell and the underworld. Every depiction I've seen of these guys tends to simply make them guardians of hell or a cave that is of some value. They sometimes are mixed with the traditional Minotaur myth as well. However, they don't contribute much to the overall development of the Minotaur and fantasy, or are like a stagnant cousin, I would say. The Renaissance, though, saw a resurgence of Minotaurs and their art. During this time, the exact form of the Minotaur was solidified. The upper part was a bull and the bottom part was a man. He's extremely large, aggressive, and violent. We also see the Minotaur showing up in Dante's Inferno. He's guarding the entrance to the seventh circle of hell, the circle of violence. The Minotaur here represents the three rings of the circle: violence against others, for the people he ate, violence against oneself, in Dante's version he's biting himself, and violence against nature, for what could be more unnatural than the way he was created by man and beast. C.S. Lewis's Minotaurs. C.S. Lewis is responsible for adding Minotaurs to modern fantasy. They played a small part in the first Narnia novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Here, they're shown as foes to our heroes, serving the White Witch faithfully. After this novel, they sort of disappear from his future works, only being mentioned in The Silver Chair, with them being carvings on the side of the Giant's Bridge, which implies a connection to the Giant Lands. However, C.S. Lewis himself has said that he believes that they theoretically could have been redeemed, since he believes in redemption. Because of this, many modern adaptations have Minotaurs as heroes, especially when working with Prince Caspian. Minotaurs also exist in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Minotaurs started out as foes for players to fight, and they were in the first versions of the Monster Manual. Here, they are noted as being cursed humans or the offspring of Minotaurs and humans. I don't think these couplings were very happy based on old lore. Something I find interesting is Minotaurs are noted as dwelling underground and not being confused by labyrinths. This is something D&D seems to be obsessed with, since in all future products it gets noted as this. Minotaurs also are a playable race that doesn't exist until the Dragonlance series. In Dragonlance, they are made a playable race, and it is noted that Minotaurs are usually harsher and crueler than others. They've also been noted as being oppressed throughout history by the other races. When left alone, Minotaurs seem to focus on shipbuilding and becoming great navigators. I think this is a fantastic use of their navigational abilities, as seen in the labyrinthine dwellings in the past. Just like the other races of the time, they are limited in what classes they can be, with fighters and barbarians being the only class that they have unlimited leveling in. The mix of these two types of Minotaurs is what modern Dungeons & Dragons uses. They still seem to be really focused on navigation, with the ability to find their way through mazes, which I believe is an interesting reading on the original tale, not one that I see in other media. From here, Minotaurs basically stay in Greek-aligned stories only, if your story takes place in ancient Greece or is adjacent to it like in Percy Jackson, until we get to World of Warcraft and the Tauren. The Tauren are an interesting take on Minotaurs that exist in the World of Warcraft series. Although technically the first sight of them was in Warcraft 3 Reigns of Chaos, they actually were announced for World of Warcraft before they were seen in Warcraft 3. Here, they take an interesting twist with both Minotaurs and Centaurs, taking them from their Greek roots and giving them a Native American coat of paint, a fresh new spin on both. While the Greek Minotaur wanders the mazes and labyrinths, the Tauren wander the plains. Interestingly enough, some of these subraces are other bovine-like animals. The Yaungles are yaks, and the High Mountain Tauren are moose, and the Tonka are bison. The Tauren also have two deities which fit well with the ancient bull goats. They have a sun god and the Earth Mother. They both represent fertility and have a focus on light, which I think is a really neat callback. how are your Minotaurs? Minotaurs in my own setting of Enos function like that of the ancient Greek version, where they're mostly monsters. They are made through a ritual to Tauren, the evilest deity and the demiurge. They are raised in these cults and taught how to be brutal warriors, valuing and protecting the cult that birthed them as family. They are always violent on the less intelligent side. However, they can be used by the forces of good under certain circumstances. I had one group of players befriend a Minotaur whose cult was killed, and they convinced him to join them as they fought evil across the world. This Minotaur was named Pakar, and he would get into fights frequently, but it's a very powerful ally for them to have. This group is still in the setting and can be found as an Easter egg in one of the adventures. There is a chance that this can be changed, however. I have had a few people ask me to make them a playable race in Enos. I'm torn on this though, so I'll leave it to all of you in the comments. Let me know below if you think this should be a monster or it should also be a playable race. That is all for today. Thank you for watching this far. If you enjoyed the content, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. I'm looking forward to your candor in the comments below. Have a great day.